Okay, welcome back after that short break. We are on to the first session of inSIG 2024, the ninth edition. My name is Satish, and I'm part of the organizing group of inSIG. This session is titled Evolving Nature of Internet Governance, Global and Indian Perspectives. The difference between internet and internet governance, I'm sure all of you have realized by now. Internet is a bunch of technologies, hardware and stuff, software, TCP/IP, etc. But internet governance is a glue that makes all of these things, including things like AI and quantum and blockchain, all of this work harmoniously together. So we are talking mostly about internet governance, and we have two experts here, and two people who have been through. They have been a kind of witness to the whole evolution of internet governance and the internet itself over the last many years. So this session is going to take a very high-level view because we don't have much time. We have only 1 hour. And in that 1 hour, we cannot cover global and Indian perspectives in any length of any great detail. So we'll be looking at a 30,000 feet view of what has happened in the last several years, the current situation, and what is the future. So the format of this session is that there are 3 rounds of questions that I'll be asking, and they will be responding in about 5 minutes. Then we'll have a Q&A. So please note your questions and raise them during the Q&A, and they will answer it. And then we'll close with a small closing statement. So the first question is, what have been the highlights of the last 3 decades of the internet? First, we'll go to Martin for a global view, and then to Dr. Govind for an India-specific perspective. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you so much, Satish, for having me here, and so good to see so many of you in the room, some familiar faces, some new ones. The last decade is really, seems like a very short time on the scale of things. If you look to the internet, which started in the 60s with the ARPANET, where we started to pick up the fundaments only in 74 when TCP/IP was established, and we made this network interoperable. So a network of networks where many other networks have attached to since. And all this didn't really become popular until we saw the first browsers on the internet that helped you navigate the internet, find information, find each other. Be a platform for Facebook, Google, and all these. But the last 10 years in this has really seen the pickup of the need to be more secure, because the internet really became relevant and important. The last 10 years, the standards that have been developed over the years by for instance, the Internet Engineering Task Force for the global internet, shared standards, open standards that are developed by volunteers around the world and are adopted on a voluntary practice because they matter. But only the last 10 years they've been developed in a way that security was an essential element of that. How to make sure that what we do becomes safe. As the internet was never built to be safe. The internet was built to work, to help us communicate. Right now it's clear that just that is not enough anymore. So a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity, upcoming realization around the world that data protection wasn't only a European thing, but really matters, and also in India found its way. If I look to global internet governance as such, the organizations like ICANN, the RARs, that used to operate this space relatively under the radar, I would say, have increased interest of governments around the world to say, hey, what is the impact on our country, on our economy? So ICANN, for which I'm on the board, saw about 8 years ago, for the first time, formally independence from the US government. The internet came up in the US originally, and what is referred to as the IANA transition made sure that changes in the route, the global route, no longer need to be signed off by US government. They never gave us a problem with that. They never interfered. But this step was an important one for the world to realize that this is true. Another important step, and maybe not, maybe seem trivial, but when the Russian invasion in Ukraine happened, Ukraine sent a formal letter to ICANN asking to take Russia out of the route because of aggression. And of course we can't do that, because we're not a political organization. We are to serve the world. And by the way, whatever the Russian government decides doesn't affect all the Russian people that we would have taken out as well. So from that perspective, it's important to manage this good as a global good. And I think today you see that the technical internet, so this internet on which everything happens, it works. It will continue to work. We're dedicated to that. It's too valuable not to work for the world, so we will continue to invest in that. And for that, we need to work with everybody, all stakeholders, all countries, and dare I say, also with future generations, because you would like it to work too. So.
Thanks, Martin. So, three takeaways from Martin's opening statement. One is that the internet was not designed with security in mind. It was designed to work. The second is the importance of the IANA transition, wherein the internet, or at least ICANN, become formally separated from the US government's contract. And that's a very important step politically, because the world realizes that it is no longer the US government that controls the internet. And the third point is relating to the Ukraine-Russia standoff, when Ukraine wrote to ICANN saying that the .ru should be removed from the root. And ICANN's board decided that no, we cannot do that, because we're not a political organization. We have to remain neutral on this. So this is for future reference. Over to you, Dr. Govind.
Thank you, Satish Babu. Thank you, Satish Babu. India's story of the last 3 decades of the internet development started, as you all know, that our internet started by EARNet, Educational and Research Network, in 80s. Dial-up connections were initially given to the 5 IITs and ISC, and it started from NCST, National Center for Software Technology in Mumbai. So that was the first experiment done to initiate the process of internet mailing services to academia and research. Thereafter, Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited, VSNL, I don't know how many of you know, there was a international gateway was set up in Mumbai. Then that gateway was, spearheaded the non-commercial communications, software communications, because India was getting into the software development at that time. I still remember that N. Vittal, one of the pioneer secretaries of the ministry, they said that we have to have a software. If it is not exported or it is not, because we are developing for the outside world, so unless we have a good communication mailing services, it will not be done. Then in 1998, the government announces a policy that allowed the setting up of private internet service providers. Till that time, though we have started internet in a very humble, very small speeds, you will laugh today if that speed, if I tell you 9.6 kbps. So that 9.6 kbps speed, even a humble situation, but for that time, some initiative was required. Then the broadband came. Then the ISPs developed the access and reduced costs of the internet. Then broadband introduction came. Then the government initiatives, programs like the National Telecom Policy. So the major revolution came when 1999, the National Telecom Policy was formulated, and then they liberalized the telecom circuits, telecom lines, that point of time. Then mobile internet boom came in 2010s, smartphone proliferation, 4G series came, Digital India initiative came in 2015, all you know. Then the current trends and that increased usage. And today, you know, as Devesh Tyagi in inaugural said, we are reaching 1 billion internet users maybe by next year. So you can imagine the kind of low internet base to high internet base to super internet base, which we made a journey of that kind of thing, starting with a very few internet users way back in 2003, 2004. Side by side, I would also mention that one of the important internet tenets were the setting up of National Internet Exchange of India. In 2003, because globally we were seeing what kind of trends are going out in internet infrastructure. So 2003, we set up internet exchange points connecting 5 metros to begin with. And today, as Devesh said, that it is now 77 points are connected, and we are trafficking more near 2 trillion terabits of per second traffic, which is a huge number, which is increasing day by day because our user base is very high. Because internet users, when you are reaching a billion, you can imagine the kind of traffic which will go from one place to another. And the internet was set up because at that point of time, the internet was going round the world to reach another point within the country, say Delhi to Bangalore. So we setting up internet exchange means that all roads are announced locally, and circuit will not go, bandwidth will not be wasted, and latency will be reduced. So that was one point. Another was the setting up of the .in registry. We revamped the .in registry. We made it automatic system. A software was we collaborated with the US company at that point of time. Today it's another company which we are collaborated. But important point here is that the .in was very low in numbers that time. So like .com was more proliferation, but with the setting up of the .in, we able to proliferate, and today we are reached, I'm told, 4.1 million, 41 lakhs .in domains. And side by side, then thereafter we developed the IDNs, internationalized domain names, that .bharat in various languages. We have 22 official languages and 15 scripts in the country. So all these languages, because internet is not for only English, there are 90% people out there which they don't know English and all those kind of things. So you have to have the content in the local languages and local scripts. So today I'm glad to see that most of the internet work which is in the country is going on in the local languages. But .bharat domain names is yet to be proliferated more. And then we have the NIR setup. Then these are the kind of 30 decades of 3 decades of internet development in the country and how the internet governance came up. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Govind. I think the last point about IDNs, which is international domain names, is unique to India in terms of the number of scripts handled. Although China at that point had a higher population than India, they had only 2 IDN CCTLEs, whereas India had 15 scripts, 15 CCTLEs in different scripts, and that is indeed an achievement. So now we move on to the next question, which is that what are the major challenges facing the internet today? Over to you, Martin. What are the major challenges facing the internet?
Challenges? Well, I guess the major challenges we see today is not so much in whether the internet works and connects us, but it's much to do with what's happening on the internet, with all kind of abuse, extortions, and that matters. It's clearly a space where we need to learn to work with together, which means awareness of how to use it. It means legislation to back it up and avoid the bad things is crucial. The other thing is that with the increased importance of the internet, also we need to continue to work to improve the resilience, the robustness of it. So it will be and remain available. with that, we also need to look at new technologies like the impact of AI and at some point in the future, quantum technologies that may distort what we currently trust as a space to use. So we need to be aware of that and work with that. Now, the good news about these also new technologies is that they don't only come with threats, but they also come with opportunities. Opportunities to help us to secure our systems better. You may have been seeing phishing, you may have even been victim of phishing at some point. In the past, these messages were recognizable because they were full of spelling mistakes and wrongdoings. Not true anymore. They're correct. They're very much right on. They relate to your data, and even more so, they may even be personalized because AI makes that scalable. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is AI can also help us detect AI. So in that way, if you build that into your systems, you get this arms race to make sure that the bad guys are captured with the same technologies as that the bad guys use to try to get us. So that's a major element. I think the other major challenge is actually what you just talked about. When the internet started, it was about global communications, and I think for the first years, mostly of it was in English, American, I dare say. Even at 2000, at the change of the millennium, more than half of all the traffic was North American traffic. And the rest was routed via America, as Dr. Govind explained. Today, North America is about 8% of internet usage, and more than half comes from Asia Pacific, in which India has a very big part. So we also see that with the platforms and how the internet is used, more and more local applications become important, and this is where IDNs, internationalized domain names, the scripts, the 8 scripts that are serving India, the many languages that serve India, become more important for your local coordination, for your local sharing of information. What is the offer of fish on the market, but also in applications that help you work together to make an offering that can successfully be sold on the global market. So how to integrate those IDNs is a challenge because in many ways they're not always reachable. So they don't always resolve, we say in technical terms, which means that you type in the IDN address, but it goes nowhere. We need to dramatically work on that. And lastly, participate. So much of the fundamentals have been led by the ones who started using it. It's so important that your voice is heard, even more so when you move towards technologies of AI on the internet, because AI is context dependent. It is dependent on the data that you put in. It's dependent on the values that underlay the algorithms that you use. So get involved at global level and also see locally how you could use these technologies best, because you know best what you need locally. So I think these are the challenges, and I think the people in this room are up to it.
Thanks very much, Martin. So one important thing that Martin pointed out was the core internet technologies are robust. We saw during the COVID that suddenly people were pushed online and the internet continued to work without breaking. So that basically says that the core technologies are robust. But what happens on the internet, that is a new bunch of problems, including yesterday in this room we had a discussion on quantum. What does quantum computing do to the internet, the security of the internet? It can potentially break some of the protocols that we are currently using, which is based on encryption. So then what do we do? Now the good news is that the quantum technologies are not here on our doorstep right now, but they're coming. And then we need to kind of look at what is called as PCQ, post-quantum cryptography, PQC, sorry. So there are a number of challenges that are caused by the emerging technologies, including AI. When AI is a double-edged sword, you can use it for both purposes, for both pursuing or attacking as well as defending. So over to you, Dr. Govind, for the Indian perspective.
Thank you, Satish Babu. Yes, as the more and more users are hopping onto the internet in India or abroad, you can see the challenges are equally coming up in a bigger and bigger way. Technology platforms are going leaps and bounds, whether it is AI, whether it is IoT, whether it is a Bitcoin. And so the challenges, whether it is a financial transactions, how the frauds are increasing, how the misinformations and fake news are coming up. So that is another kind of challenge, the rapid spread of false information, whether to believe, how to believe the information in this global or national perspective, health decisions, elections, and other opinions, public opinions. Digital divide, a country like India, we have a digital divide is a big issue because not all are having the internet, and even if the internet access is there, the content is not there. The poor man, even if you give him the access, how will he, what will he do with the kind of content he needs, whether for the farming, whether it is for his local market, so transactions. So there is a need to see a good digital literacy in the larger rural part of the country. Hello. Yeah, thanks. Then privacy concerns are there, regulatory issues are there. The governments face challenges in regulating the internet. On one side, we regulate the internet, but on the other side, it affects the technical aspects of the internet. So you have to see whether you pressurize the Facebook, pressurize the WhatsApp, pressurize the Google to behave in such a certain way. So it will affect the freedom of expression. So how to balance between the privacy and the freedom of expression and the security, that's a big challenge. Content moderation, how the content, whatever content is user generated today, how will you see that without moderation, if you are in the public domain, it should not harm the public in large. It should not be communal, it should not be hateful content. So all these things are creating challenges to the internet. Then we have environmental impact, like the professor from IIM today morning said, the energy guzzling data centers, how to come out with a green energy concept in these larger, fossil fuel based electricity, fossil fuel based servers. So that's a big challenge there. Increasing number of internet users, increasing data coming up, gigabits per user. So, how will you see that the data centers are less fuel guzzling, less polluting? You go into the green energy kind of thing. Then we have a scams and frauds which are happening day in and day out. You have seen paper, I think every one of you are aware how the things are happening. Internet shutdowns. In the country like ours, the internet shutdowns are there. So how to mitigate that? We have to have a multi-stakeholder approach in that, not only the law enforcement agencies, but a proper discussion, consultation has to take place. I'm glad to say that tomorrow there is after lunch, we will be having a role play model by the on internet shutdowns. All of you will be playing that. Some will be government, some will be private sector, some will be technical community, some will be civil society, so that we will see how you decide if any internet shutdown kind of situation comes. Then we have a protecting sovereign interest and the platform dominance. The country's interest and the platform governance, like the Facebook, like the WhatsApp, like the Google, how they are developing their platforms and what kind of material they are putting up there, whether how that affects the sovereign, the country's government's laws, how they are making use of it, or whether they are not saying good for that. Then we have a innovation versus curbing big tech. Today there is a big gap between the developing world and the developed world on various technology. Whether you take AI, whether you take data protection area, whether you take IoT, whether you take Bitcoin, whether you take blockchain. So all these areas, they are decades of ahead than our country or developing world. So how to mitigate that? Internet fragmentation. Internet fragmentation is another issue. I don't know whether you are aware of that, how that is going to different the things and different kind of thing, and how to curb that kind of internet thing. Then we have a dominance of private entities and in multi-stakeholder. The earlier multi-stakeholder started with the concept of all will be at equal footing from the Geneva or Tunis agenda. But today we are seeing in the multi-stakeholder, the most dominant players are the private sector, and the others they are lesser and lesser. So we have to say how to balance out that weakening global institutions and tools, lack of agreed mechanism of cooperation. Even cybersecurity, you are seeing the global cooperations are not unified, not coming up in a way that is required for all countries to obey that. Growing tech geopolitics between US and China, US and allies and China, and how to bring that all in the same table, because e-commerce, health issues, and the other kind of transactions, it is affecting the bigger countries and the lower countries in a different way. Then we have a go. I will not get into the another global things, which I will leave it to Martin. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Govind. I think that's a perfect place to segue into our last question. How can we strengthen internet governance for the future, ensuring that it remains a single, open, free space that can be used by everyone? Over to you, Martin.
Thank you so much, Satish. Well, basically, the recent Summit for the Future at the UN level also emphasized the need for that open, inclusive internet. One of the challenges of today is that you get a different kind of haves and have-nots. Maybe not even so much the people with money, but the people with access, the people that are connected, that have access to global resources, to data, to all that. So to make sure that not only the current ones, that we don't move towards a new divide in the world. I think be great to be very attentive to that, and to call also your government to be active on that, but play your own role too. Everybody matters in that. It's the way you interact, the way you look to your role in that. Participate in global events, participate in local events. Yesterday we had what we call a GFCE Triple I meeting, Internet Infrastructure Initiative. It's really focused on increasing justified trust in the use of the internet and email in your region. And that links to global knowledge, global networks, because this region wants to participate in a global internet. But it also goes very much back to what you do locally and how you involve your peers in being aware of how to use the internet, what to ask for, where to go for. And all that is so incredibly important. So strengthening it is you do by participation. Strengthening it is by asking the right questions. Strengthening it is by thinking ahead of what new technologies will bring to you, but also thinking of what your participation on current platforms as Facebook and others bring to you in terms of your privacy, in terms of your vulnerability, and that of the ones around you. So awareness, make good use of modern internet standards to make sure that you're relatively well protected, and make sure that your environment is aware of this and participate on global level as well as local level to developing this. Be aware. This is not just something, it's a big part of your life.
Thanks, Martin. So the importance of global cooperation has been highlighted. And I would like to kind of ask Martin to speak on the importance of the multi-stakeholder model as well, but we'll come back to that during the questions. Over to you, Dr. Govind.
Strengthening the internet governance in the future, ensuring a single internet for everyone. I think this motto of ICANN and IGF is all because internet is all over now, all pervading, all things are happening on the internet. So we have to see how we maintain a single open internet. It doesn't get fractured. Few fellows in some part of the world using their TCP/IP, their regulations, they don't take away the internet, which is a global, which is used by everyone. Fruits of internet, everything is getting it. So how to see that doesn't happen? So for that we should have a multi-stakeholder approach. The governments involve private sector, civil society, and technical communities, so that all the time we get into those kind of things, making processes to ensure diverse perspectives. Because moment that the perspectives are not listened, not heard, there is a discontent within the community. So everybody wants say on the table how he is heard in that, whether you agree to it or not, but at least his viewpoint has to be there. Then the next is clear regulations. The regulations, whether you take data protection regulations, AI regulations, or gaming regulations, whatever emerging things are coming up, these regulations should be very clear. Clear in the sense there should not be any ambiguity, there should not be any overlapping of these regulations, so that a person who is doing some kind of entrepreneurship in any field, whether it is data area, whether it is AI entrepreneurship, he should not get confused whether what kind of compliance, what kind of thing he has to do. Global cooperation, fostering international collaboration with international institutions, whether it is UN, whether it is international cybersecurity institutions, country to country collaboration, bilateral collaborations, so that today internet has no border. So internet doesn't see from where any message is coming or anything coming from the within the country or outside the country. So unless you have a good collaboration with the outside perpetrators to be caught, and for that you need cybercrime cells in different parts. Then promote internet access, improve infrastructure. That is a motto should be that everybody gets the internet, everybody is accessible to internet, everybody is internet is affordable to the unreached, everybody has a sufficient content in his language, in his area of work, so that internet is doesn't become a privy to the few people, few community only. Cybersecurity enhancement, I talked about. Digital literacy, the capacity development, strengthen privacy protections. Internet will not be there if there is no privacy protection is there. So in order to have a privacy protection, you need internet to be taking care of those issues, encourage open standards. The standards is a very important where internet engineering task force is doing those things. India is also started participating and going in a bigger way. So we have to see that how, because any standard, whether it is protocols, whether it is TCP/IP, whether it is DNSSEC, whether it is all kinds of HTTPS or all kinds of things, like what we did yesterday and day before, all kinds of things need a good standard development within the country, so that your views are also heard in the global forums. These strategies will help to India to go into the keep the internet unique, open, stable, and secure. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Govind. I completely agree with you, except on one thing. Whenever you said his, I would have liked to hear hers, his, and hers, something like that. Noting that 50% or more people in the room are women. So now the floor is open for any questions or comments. Yeah, we have one, two. Jay, you need help. There is one, two questions.
So you touched back on quantum security, right? So I want to ask, yeah, yeah. So I want to ask, how do you see uh, security going forward when quantum computers will be there? Basically, like whether it will be, do you see the protocols changing, or how it's gonna be, like in the near future? Yeah.
Hi, I am Aditya. My particular question is with regards to the satellite internet. So we are seeing that internet services, satellite internet services like Starlinks are emerging, which are not bound by the conventional internet regulatory framework. We saw it happening in Brazil, where the government shut down the usage of Twitter, but you can still access it through Starlink. So my particular question to Martin is, what are the regulatory framework that you're expecting that the government will be coming in as a response to govern the satellite-based internet? And my particular question to Govind is that we have Indian companies like Airtel and Jio that are foraying into the satellite internet services. So, do you expect that it will bring a very strong foreign policy change in India because we'll be like a country who will be able to provide satellite internet not regulated or governed by the local regulations of our neighboring countries which are facing a regime unrest?
Jay, please hold on. We'll take these two first. So, quantum and Starlink. Quantum and Starlink.
Satelliting. Quantum and satelliting. Well, for sure. If you look to quantum networks, satellites are a crucial part of that. And it's not abound yet, but it will come. Satellite networks as such, what has emerged over the last 10 years is low orbit networks that facilitate communications that weren't possible either. With you, I was surprised to understand that Mr. Musk decided to turn off Starlink at some point. It's still not clear whether it's politically motivated or just because he wanted the US government to pay part of the costs and make sure he would not go broke. So that this is in hand of these kind of corporations is, I think, a real concern and should be subject to overall governance. The security question as well?
No, I'll take on the quantum part. So the question
Okay.
on quantum, what happens when quantum computing is available at scale? The answer is that we do not know completely, but some of the protocols, especially that relate to encryption, have to change. And we have to quantum proof some of these things. Work is going on right now, but we don't have any answers as of now. In yesterday's discussion, it was pointed out that this branch called post-quantum cryptography is proceeding now. By the time quantum comes out at scale, hopefully we'll have some solutions on the new protocols to be kind of deployed. Now, on the satellite internet in India, I'll ask Dr. Govind to respond.
Yes, that's a good question. That internet which is not terrestrial bound is satellite through is you are receiving, but India is still in the initial stages. I will say it is not yet got into that, and they are yet to develop or come out, evolve regulations for that kind of internet, which is not controlled within the terrestrial region or within by the telcos. But again, I feel that this is like Airtel or the geos are going to hook onto that kind of satellite, collaborating with the global players. So there will be some kind of regulations which will not be completely out of the, okay, everybody is independent to do whatever they like. There will be some kind of regulations will come there.
But
Just
it's
to add-
it's a very good question. It's out there, and we can't control it, and it's beyond borders. So
Yeah, so
Fully agree.
currently we have a licensing regime for satellite phones. Satellite phones are not mostly data, they're mostly voice, but that voice is actually data. But it's not for widespread use. It's not like Starlink, which is kind of available over a large area. But there is a licensing regime currently.
In the last parliament session, the government did bring in an amendment to the Telecom Act where they allowed the use of satellite, where they
Yes.
basically did a spectrum allocation. My question wasn't regard to the regulating these the satellite-based internet in India. My question was particularly how it will be affecting India's foreign policy, because given that we will be now owning two indigenous satellite which are in a position to give internet to those countries which are facing regime unrest, let's say Myanmar or Bangladesh. So how will it affect our foreign policy?
Well, I'm not sure if we can answer that because none of us are foreign policy experts, but I'm sure there'll be an impact. There's certainly going to be an impact.
Yeah.
Can we take the next question, please? Oh, there's one here.
My question is to Govind
Please
sir.
identify yourself.
My name is Pandita Agal Gupta. We were talking about strengthening IG, and so you mentioned that AI needs to be regulated, so is other emerging tech. But we always talk about regulating these emerging technologies, but we never talk about balancing innovation and regulation. Like, we do talk about it, but we don't know how to. There's always a statement saying that we should innovate and regulate, but I think the how part never is answered. So could you please throw some light on that?
Would you like to, either of you like to go? Yeah. Balancing innovation.
Yeah, balancing. In fact, I also said about that in a couple of meetings that, that what I was telling yesterday's GFC meeting also, that, one of the quantum thing, lady was telling something about the quantum based encryption and decryption kind of thing. So the issue is, how much regulation, what is the place where, how far you can go to the regulation, and how the innovation part take place. If you stifle the innovation by the strong regulations, that is what I said, light touch regulations. The regulation should not be such that, they are not able to do any kind of, they are busy in looking into the compliance in the regulations and other part of thing, but at the same time they should go into the innovation part, because that is the main part rather than the regulation part more and more. So there has to be a kind of balance. Even the government has to see the smaller startup and the bigger players are not put in the same basket as far as regulations are concerned, as far as the innovations are concerned.
May I ask Martin to speak about the 1 minute?
Just on this regulation part, the element that Dr. Govind mentioned is very, very important, of course. But the other thing is also the Global Digital Compact called for is alignment across the world, because AI is global technology. It will not stop at the border, just like the internet. At the same time, it's different than the internet. It's about content, it's about your applications, but at least how you use it should be something that has some kind of international understanding, like human rights, or human rights based, that taking that into account, like inclusivity, making sure it's available to all. These are key elements that are being discussed at the moment. And the real balance to be found is indeed between innovation but also irreversible damage. And avoiding irreversible damage, you can try to arrange by legislation beforehand, but you can also ask, and this is what Europe is doing at the moment, ask the industry, how do you take your responsibility? What is your plan? Because you're aware that this is important to you, otherwise will come down on you. And based on the understanding of what good practice would look like from the industry, then backup legislation may take place. But most importantly, take into account different sizes of business, as you said, inclusivity, global harmonization are key. And let's not miss the opportunities, but let's make sure we try to build in guardrails for avoiding irreversible damage. For internets, the keyword for internets, for those who were on the youth IGF yesterday, a familiar thing already. I hope you ordered the book already, or at least downloaded the summary of it. How will the internet of the future be built? It will not be will not be solely coming from Silicon Valley. It's become global. Silicon Valley has its values of making it technologically excellent and just make it happen in the best possible way from a technological perspective. That's one of the things that will still drive the future of the internet, because technology innovation will go on. The other one is the European one that is value-based. So what is important, if you look to the book of Wendy Hall and Kieran McCarthy on for internets, they call it the Brussels bourgeois. But basically it's the value-based approach towards network. Then you have the commercial focus on networks. So let's make money, and you see it a lot in blockchain, in the cryptocurrencies, also in AI and quantum. It's where the money goes, where the biggest investment goes, and we don't talk millions anymore, we talk billions, many billions. By the way, it's not only the commercial parties, but also the Republic of China. Last but not least, then there is the Chinese model, which is more or less the monitoring model. Know what citizens do so you can protect them to irresponsible behavior. None of these cultures is perfect. None of these cultures is only bad either. But it's these cultures together that will determine where the internet will go towards the future. And my ask and plea to you is to respect the principles behind it, even if you don't like all aspects, and try to distinguish in all four what the dark sides are and what the bright sides are you want to steer on, because you will be part of that future. And it's so good to know it's a global thing, and not only the culture you come from. Well, my culture isn't the best, yours may not be the best either, but they're what it is. They're valuable for us. And in the global context, it's important to think of what drives the world in its change.
Thanks, Martin. So the point is that all the four internets have their pros and cons, and the diversity will continue to exist. Yeah, next question. We have eight more minutes, or 7 more minutes. We'll take 2 questions.
Yeah, so my name is Hiram. We talked a little bit about emerging technologies and the kind of risks they bring. This is really like an iterative cat and mouse game where you get like risks, governments then put out regulation to have some sort of safety measures. My question is, given the panelists are rather experienced, what kind of key learnings can we get from standards or safety measures being adapted as risks evolve? As the internet has evolved over the past 2 or 3 decades, so that that informs my generation on how the next set of emerging tech has to be regulated or what we have to watch out for.
So the question is the emerging technologies. He's saying it's a cat and mouse game, meaning new technologies come out, then regulation tries to catch up, but then the technologies still further evolve. So how do we kind of get to the end of this? Do you want to answer it now or take the next question also?
Well, just very short. Everything is already regulated. And what we talk about is how does it apply to this condition. So it's really the application of regulation to new standards that needs to be taken into account. So like technology, legislation needs to evolve in its explanation. And how that works depends very much on which is the legal model, whether it's driven in one way or the other, because there's basically two different models in the world. One is based on how law evolves, so based on practice, and the other one is more on a principle based. But in both cases, it's important to understand what this law that we all care about actually means in this new technological context. So make it technologically neutral and do continue to explain what it means.
Yeah, I think this is what happens as technology emerges. Even AI technology, we are not fully comprehend how the things are going to happen in the future. Even any regulation which we bring for the AI or IoT or anything, how it behaves over the time, because full picture is not coming immediately. So the regulations has to be continuous process, I will say, so that it catches the thing as and when it required to be amended.
Hi. So my name is Arvind and my research is primarily on digital platform ecosystems. So I will touch on the second question that was there on the challenges of IG. Now phishing, as we all know, it is primarily, it comes through a call and then goes through a link. Can AI help us to go one step before this? Can AI tell us? For instance, Truecaller says that it is a suspected scam. Can AI help us to identify the linkages that, okay, this link is a scam, please don't go through it? We all have the awareness, but the educated class is battling through this, right? So, can AI help us to create this awareness?
Either of you want to answer this? AI and
Actually, very practically, yes, it can. It's also used for checking on students whether their answers to exams are only AI based or really have their own content too. So this is one of the means that actually can be built in and is more often built in recognition of scams. As you know, there's a reputation blacklist organizations out there that participate to marking different email sources, etc., on such things. And these are taken into account when you come to the application of the policies, like in the DMARC standard, which is based on DKIM and SPF. So different standards together do that, and they're fed by reputation blacklists. And these are increasingly and rapidly adapting AI to detect AI fraud in a way. So yes, it's there. And of course, the bad guys will think of ways to overcome these detection mechanisms. And then the good guys will find ways to overcome that overcome. That will be a continuous process. But yes, it's there. And that's the only scalable way to address it.
Thanks, Martin. We'll take the last question now. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Deepika.
Sorry? Okay, make it. Can the mic go there, please? It's actually continuation of this.
I hope you don't fully disagree with me.
No. I not really. It's just a quick one. Sorry about that. So in India, right?
Please identify yourself, Swati.
I'm Swati, and I work in IDC and I do a lot of research around all these telecom and IoT and regulation. So, Government of India or the Telecom Regulator of India, they have released a call to action which goes into effect today. So that would require vendors to whitelist the URLs that they send in SMS or WhatsApp or any other links, and even for calls, they're trying to monitor it so to reduce spam. So this is something that is being addressed already in India, at least. Just wanted to put that across.
Yeah,
So it's
thanks very
called
much.
CTA. It's used on a DLT platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Deepika, and I'm from the Data Security Council of India, an initiative by NASSCOM. So, my question is addressed to Dr. Govind. And as you pointed out about particularly IXPs, so in fact, even all of us at DSCI, we've been working on research on IXPs and its regulation, and we've also found that there have been several regulators within India, and since internet's a very broad space, multiple regulators have started to regulate on IXPs or will potentially start regulating on IXPs. And as you rightfully pointed out, over compliance and a lot of regulatory overlap runs the risk of impeding the innovative capabilities that IXPs offer. So sir, I'm just curious to know, according to you, who would be the most appropriate regulator, Indian regulator, to comment on IXPs?
Yeah. In fact, this regulating IXPs, it was I think we were hearing this for a long time. Amitabh Singhal will here tell us that, whether IXP should be regulated or not. Because what are you regulating? What they are only involved in exchanging the data, interexchanging the mails or whatever it is from the hub, various exchange points. So what kind of regulations are needed there? Whether, because the content part they are not bothered. So it is the traffic part which they are doing through their servers, their hubs and all. So whether, what kind of regulations will be there for what kind of thing, content is already regulation, different regulations are there for that. So ISPs in a regulated part will not be, I mean, that is why where the lot of issues are coming up, that whether we should regulate or we should not regulate.
Thanks, Dr. Govind. With this, we come to the end of this session. Before I close the session, I'd like to invite the organizers to provide a memento to Martin. Both of us are organizers, so we are not entitled to mementos.
I request Satish to just hand over the memento.